The psychology of centers. As we have learned so far that man is a machine who is not aware of him being a machine, man does not know himself and ascribes all kinds of functions to himself that in reality he does not possess. His ability to act, feel, and think on his own account is an illusion. Man is governed largely by the impressions of his surroundings and can do only very small things within the limitations of these surroundings. What a mechanical man can do, however, is complain, object, and produce mechanical emotional reactions, all functions of the many different little I's that of which his inner world is made of. Therefore, man's possible evolution has to start with observing himself and acknowledge these basic facts. Here lies another major difference with the more traditional views of psychology. We must understand now that the study of psychology of man's possible evolution really means self-study. One cannot study psychology of man's possible evolution as one can study astronomy, that is, apart from oneself. Another angle to observe oneself from is the concept of functions or centers. The fourth way tells us that the human machine is made up of 4 separate machines, also referred at as the 4 centers. The centers being 1. Intellectual center, 2. Emotional center, 3. Moving center, 4. Instinctive center. The intellectual center's main function is to think, reason, and work with abstractions. The emotional center takes care of feelings, ethics, and valuations. The functions of the moving center and the instinctive center are not always very clearly distinguished. The instinctive center regulates all inner work of the organism, whereas the moving center is concerned by all the outer work of the organism, movement in space, walking, writing, speaking, eating, and memories of them. One way of distinguishing the functions of these 2 centers is by asking yourself if the function was present at birth, or that it had to be learned. Some motions are present at birth, but most of the moving functions are inherent, and one has to learn them all as a child learns to walk, or as one learns to write or draw. Besides these 4 main centers, there are 2 more functions for which have no name in ordinary language, and which appear only in high states of consciousness. 1. Higher emotional function, which appears in the state of self-consciousness, and the other, higher mental function, which appears in the state of objective consciousness. These are the combined conscious workings of the so-called higher parts of the intellectual and emotional center, which are all present and active in man, but where man has, due to his mechanicalness, no access to.
In the religious and philosophical literature of different nations, there are many allusions to the higher states of consciousness and to higher functions. As we are very rarely in these states of consciousness, we cannot study these functions or experiment with them, and we learn about them only indirectly from those who have attained or experienced them.
Although much of man's behavior and actions is the result of the workings of a combination of different centers and parts of centers, self-study has to start by observing your own actions and see how each separate center plays its distinctive part. Sometimes, the words instinct, instinctive are also often used in the wrong way. The sex center is yet another center altogether, and the instinctive function includes by itself yet another 4 different classes of functions of its own: physiology, the 5 senses, basic physical emotions and reflexes.